We're good to go.
Cool. Well, welcome to another edition of CAA Today. This is our Week 9 recap and Week 10 preview. We had two Battle for Appomattox games this week in the CAA. The North took both of those battles and leads 8-6. Be two more games this week and two more in Week 11. So if the North sweeps both games again, they win the Civil War Cannon here this week. We'll start by going through our recap. VMI at Delaware was the first game on the schedule. This was the CAA game of the week in our preview edition, and it was an exciting one for quite a while. Delaware went into the half up by 7. They ended up stretching their legs in the second half, and this one is likely going to be the turning point in the CAA South race. Delaware now controls that division.
Oh yeah, Delaware is chilling in the top 15 right now, but I had them top 10 in my poll. So yeah, good win for Delaware. Tough loss for VMI. They were doing well, but we'll see how they recover.
Next up, we had James Madison at Delaware State. Fortunately for me, this one hit the over and allowed me to double up in odds makers. The back and forth game. James Madison was able to put it away in the fourth quarter, come out with a 51-33 win.
I don't know where Matt is.
I'm right here.
Oh, there we go. There we go. You want to talk about it first?
Yeah, sure. This game was frustrating. Just, I blew it, definitely. Going for too early a couple times didn't help. What else? Threw, I think, 4 picks. All of them run 1492, I think, as well. It's kind of funny, but nah. And
that double
when it came down, I just couldn't. Yeah. Now it just couldn't stop you, I guess. Really bad game across the board for me.
It was a very good game for me, so I'm not gonna complain that much. Great game, Bernie won a lot of money, and I kept my pattern going of having a win and then 3 losses. So 2-6. Now I'm 3-6, and I fully expect to be 3-9 as the season ends.
That's the attitude we want. That's the right way to approach the last 3 weeks of the season here. Next up, we had Duquesne and Morgan State. It was a huge second quarter for Morgan State that was the difference in this game. Val was only able to put up 7 points after the first quarter, and that's just not going to cut it against Ryland.
Oh yeah, Morgan State has put together a really good resume. I know they've had a couple tough losses, but overall, very good season.
Robert Morris at Towson. This one could have been game of the week in the CAA. It was a really good game. It went back and forth. Unfortunately, it was a back-breaking turnover touchdown when Robert Morris was in the Towson red zone. That was the difference and allowed Towson to stamp a victory here. We also had YSU at William and Mary. Bobo started to find his footing in the second half, but unfortunately, the Penguins were never in trouble as they took a 24-0 lead into the half and wound up winning 31-10.
Oh yeah, nothing new from Youngstown State, just continuing to stay on top. And we'll look at their next week game as being a very, very good one.
And the game that we voted our CAA game of the week in the aftermath was Richmond at Villanova. This game was tied at halftime. Nova squeaked out a win with a field goal in the last minute of the game to take down a really good Fuzzy-led team. Or did you
really good?
Go ahead.
I think he's better than his record deserves. I think he got in a bit of trouble coming with a not so great record, but he put up a really good fight. I'm just going to get out of that one with a win going YSU week.
I was gonna say that Fuzzy is very, very much better than his record shows. Just had a couple bad breaks in this game. But very good win for Edge after that tough loss against Holy Cross. to recover and win this game. So very good, very good.
So those were the week 9 matchups. Looking back at our predictions, what did you get wrong this week? I had Delaware State beating James Madison, and I had Duquesne over Morgan State.
I I missed on Delaware winning. I missed on Villanova winning. I missed on Towson, and I called the upset, but that didn't happen. I called William and Mary over YSU, but that didn't pan out.
Yeah, I picked Duquesne over Morgan State too, but other than that, I actually kind of nailed all my picks last week.
Week for Edge. Time to hand out CAA Coach of the Week. I'm going to give it to Dorr this week. Matt still has a lot to play for this season, and really needed this win to keep up with the pace in the CAA South. But the Dukes haven't given up on their season at all, despite Dorr thinking he might finish here at 3-9. He fought hard for this win, so Dorr gets CAA Coach of the Week from me.
For me, it's got to be Edge to recover from that heartbreak against Holy Cross and beat a solid Richmond coach.
I'm actually gonna differ here. Also, I'm gonna go with Delaware. They played a really good game, which could have seen them slip out of the division lead and lose all of his top 10 hopes, but he pulled it out, and he's really in control of the South now.
I'll go with Ryland. He beat a Duquesne team that I feel like was peaking right about now, and he beat them by 16, so good on him.
Turn it over to Dorr for Stat of the Week and Player of the Week.
All right, so our first stat of the week, as you can see here, we just released our individual leaderboard on the Constitution. If you guys want to go check that out, it's still a work in progress, but so far our QBR leader is Terrell Frank with 120.8. Gavin Millar, the Duquesne quarterback, in a close second, just 0.7, I guess, points behind. And then my quarterback is 8 points behind in third place. Our next stat here that we have is receiving touchdowns, mainly because that's the only stat that I have a leader in. My wide receiver 2, I think, DeAndre Marquise, has 14 receiving touchdowns, and he doesn't get either 1492 or 1212. Both those passes aren't his calls, so I don't know how he has that many receiving touchdowns. And then our passing yards leader is obviously the air raid quarterback in Terrell Frank. I should be in second. I haven't updated the leaderboard yet, but I should be in second. Clarkson there should be in second, with Gavin Millar, the Duquesne quarterback, in third. Obviously, the anthem of Youngstown State is going to be last, as Bernie has never thrown a pass this year. Our offensive and defensive player of the weeks come from Villanova and Delaware State, respectively. Villanova, no offensive player really had a great show out this week, but Freddie Peterson has been very consistent. 187 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then on defense, it was Earl Irby who had 3 sacks, 1 pick, and 10 tackles against. And yeah, that's it. Back to Bernie for power rankings.
So here we have our CAA power rankings this week. We had 6 coaches participating. Youngstown State swept the first place votes. I believe Delaware swept the second place votes as well. Villanova came in third. Morgan State takes fourth. Defending champ BMI sits there at fifth. Towson is sixth. William and Mary drops down to seventh. Delaware State is eighth, right in front of the team that just beat them. James Madison holding down the 9th spot. Kane in 10th. And an upset, Robert Morris gets out of the cellar, pipping Richmond by just 1 point for 11th place. So taking a look at these power rankings and how they've changed through the weeks, it's kind of interesting. There's been some interesting trends. This is the 3rd straight week that Delaware is in the 2 hole. James Madison gets out of the cellar after back-to-back weeks at 12th and takes the 9 spot. Morgan State was the big jumper this week, up from 8th into 4th place. And William and Mary, on the other hand, took a 4-place slide from 3rd to 7th. Next
Oh
up, we
yeah.
have.
Good.
Oh, go ahead.
Also, yeah, Robert Morris getting out of that last place spot, making way for Richmond, who only got 12 points this week. I think part of the thing is Robert Morris played a very close game against Towson. That kind of helped him climb out of the hole a little bit.
And this is Richmond's first appearance in the 12 spot. I'm sure Fuzzy won't want to be there for very long, but unfortunately, Richmond finds themselves dead last this week. Um, in terms of most surprising Week 9 upset, who were the candidates this week? We had Marist over number 25 Monmouth, 28-23. Abilene Christian taking down number 10 Sam Houston State, 35-31. Cornell on top of number 15 Yale, 52-34. Jacksonville with a victory over number 19 Campbell, 34-31. Giving it to Abilene Christian. They're quietly 6-3 this week after the win over Sam Houston State. But Sam Houston State was number 3 just 2 weeks ago, and they've taken back-to-back L's. To see them drop back-to-back games was very surprising.
All right, I guess we're skipping over Edge here, so I'll hop in here and say Purple beating a ranked team, no surprise now. So I'm going Abilene over Sam Houston State.
I'm going to go with Cornell over Yale just because of the margin of victory. So, yeah.
And Edge went with Cornell over Yale as well. He said, just like the last couple weeks, the reason that one stuck out to him was because of the margin of victory, 52-34 over a top 15 opponent. Time for everyone's favorite segment, your Week 9 contender and pretender. My contender of the week goes to Cal Poly. Might be surprising to pick a team that's ranked in the top 10 as a contender, but their resume coming into this week still left a lot to be desired. They picked up a win against a 6-2 Southern Utah team that shows me Cal Poly is for real, so I give them contender. Unfortunately, my pretender this week is Yale. They've played one of the toughest schedules in the country, and that probably would have been enough of a factor to overlook their previous loss to Columbia. But this is their second tough loss to Cornell, and I see that as a backbreaker. They have 3 conference losses, and it's going to take a lot for them to climb back into the playoff picture. Really, their only hope is that they're only 1 game back of a conference championship game spot.
Yeah, for my contender here, I'm going to go with Delaware. They've been hovering around that 15 area in the rankings for a while now, but I think a loss this week would have been really bad for them. Could have ended their hopes at a top 10, and they pulled out a big win in a game with conference championship game implications. And I wouldn't be surprised at all to see this win bump them up to a top 10 team. I'm going to go Yale too for pretty much the same reasons. Composite still had them really high going into this week. For a 4-loss team. But with those losses, I just really don't know where they playoff picture without winning the Ivy.
For me, I'm going to say Delaware. Their win over Youngstown State was looked at as a fluke, but with a strong closeout, they could find themselves with an at-large bid if they don't win conference championship. And my pretender is Chase, because they've struggled to find a strong season. And with a win out here, NDSU could win the MVC Prairie.
Matt had Delaware as his contender. He said he's consistently been winning big games, and I think he can make a run when he makes it to the playoffs. He had Yale as his pretender as well, and said even though they've played one of the hardest schedules in the country, they're only 5-4, so it's very difficult for me to see them making the playoffs or making a run if they do get in. That wraps up our coverage of Week 9. We'll turn our attention to Week 10. As we mentioned at the top of the show, there's 2 more Battle for Appomattox games this week. The Civil War cannon could be handed out to the North. They have an 8-6 lead right now. 2 games this week, 2 games next week. First game on the agenda is Delaware at Robert Morris. Delaware is on a mission. I'm wondering if they're going to look past a tricky Robert Morris team. On paper, Robert Morris doesn't look like much, but they've played everyone tough, and they have it in them to pull off an upset here. I think this one's going to be close, but give me Delaware 31-21.
Yeah, I mean, this is really like the definition of a trap game. Delaware's coming off a big division win that puts them into the sole lead of the South. next week they have another game with conference championship game, implications maybe against William and Mary. It definitely wouldn't be unthinkable to see Robert Morris surprise them and maybe sneak out a win. But I think Delaware is going to hold them off and win in a pretty low-scoring 24-17 game.
Robert Morris has played well, but Delaware's riding that big momentum off of that win against probably one of the better teams, one of the hotter teams in the FFCS in VMI, and they're going to take that momentum and win 34-17.
Next up, we have Delaware State at Richmond. Both of these teams are coming off a loss this week. Richmond is almost certainly eliminated from conference championship game contention. Delaware State is going to need to win out and get some help. Delaware State has a little bit more to play for, so I think they'll pick up a win in a game that will be one of Delaware State's lowest scoring games, only 42-35, my prediction here.
Yeah, Richmond played a really good game against me. And even though I struggled to get really anything going in the 2 games before that, I think despite slipping up last week, though, Delaware State's gonna pull this one out 49-38.
I had a rough game last week. I think I can pull out a win, something like 45-35 or 45-42, just purely based on playbooks. I am air raid 4-2 against Fuzzy's option and 4-3, or 5-2, not 4-2. What am I saying? But and also because I have become an option coach in the D2 Fast League, so I think that should help me kind of knowing how option works a little bit better. So yeah, this is also my pick for game of the week.
I'm staying on the Fuzzy hype train. I know it kind of derailed a little bit last week, but give me University of Richmond winning 34-28 to ruin the sweep.
Towson at Duquesne is going to be a really fun one. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. I think it'll be decided late in the fourth quarter. I'm going to go with Towson 49-42, but if I could say that there's one pick I'm not confident in this week, it would be this game.
Yeah, I agree there. I'm going to go with Towson 41-35, but it wouldn't surprise me at all to see it go the
I'll go with Mr. D as well, 35-31, but I also would not be surprised if Duquesne were to win it.
I'm also going Mr. D just because, Aussie hype train.
Morgan State takes on James Madison this week. This is one of our Battle for Appomattox here. Morgan State could still get to 8-4 if they win out and potentially be on the cusp of playoff contention. James Madison, they're looking to finish the season at 500. I think JMU is primed for a letdown after their big win last week, so I'm going to go with Ryland 31-28.
Yeah, I think JMU's riding high here off that win, and I think they're just gonna, I think riding high on that win is gonna make them fall a little bit short here to a to Morgan State team that's played in plenty of close games and still definitely has an outside shot at a playoff spot. So I'm gonna go with Morgan State 38-28.
Island is riding off a big win over Duquesne, so I think he carries the momentum into this week, wins something like 31-21.
Door, I think you were
yeah,
also predicting Morgan State, right?
Yeah, I'm predicting Morgan State. I got to continue my win, loss pattern. So 35-21 Morgan State. And no, I'm not throwing the game. I'm just going to lose.
William and Mary takes on VMI. These two teams are both a game back of Delaware in the South Division. William and Mary actually still controls their destiny because they play Delaware. So they would have the tiebreaker if they're able to win this. I'm going to go with William and Mary. I think Bobo pulls off the win here.
Yeah, both teams are off of a not so great loss to really good teams. Losing this one definitely kind of ends playoff and conference championship hopes for both of them for the loser here. I think VMI is going to take Bobo down 24-21 in a pretty close one.
I think this one is going to be really close as well, but I think Bobo wins by 7. So probably 35-28 or 31-24, somewhere in that range.
I'm going to stick with William and Mary winning by 2 scores after the tough loss to Youngstown.
And last but not least, we have Villanova at Youngstown State. This one is likely the CAA game of the week. The winner here has the inside track to the conference championship game. Youngstown may have enough wiggle room to lose this game and get in, but as an at-large bid. But this is almost certainly a playoff game for Villanova. I think both teams are going to be really focused on this one, so I don't expect it to be decided by a wide margin. But I believe in my Penguin squad. I'm going to go YSU 31-28.
Yeah, we all know. I mean, obviously, unlike Bernie here, I don't like to predict my own games at this point, but I'm surprisingly confident going into this one after beating Richmond and avenging my loss to Mr. D in the Fast League with a big win. We know what we need to do to keep our playoff hopes alive, and we're ready to do it. So, we're just going into this with the mindset that this is an elimination game for us.
This is a tough one for me to pick, but I think Bernie is going to win it very, very, very close. Like 28-24 on like a last-second touchdown, kind of close.
Yeah, so Edge has been playing very well, especially against the recovery game against Towson in the D2. I think that was overlooked. But yeah, this is my pick for CAA game of the week. I've played Bernie, haven't played Edge. So for the sake of my strength of schedule, I want Youngstown State to win 24-21, and that's kind of like that slow, low predictions, just kind of picking things based off of personal benefit. But yeah, give me Youngstown.
Next, we have a discussion about ins and outs. Championship game is to get into the championship game and ways to be eliminated for the championship game. So here is the clinching scenarios and the ways that teams could be eliminated this week. In the North and in the South, it's not possible for any team to clinch yet this week. However, 4 teams are either eliminated or have the possibility of being eliminated this week. A lot is going to ride on the YSU Nova game, and also the Delaware Robert Morris game is going to determine a lot of teams' fates. So we might come back next week with less than half of the CAA still playing for a conference championship game bid. Next up, we have blind resumes. I will drop the resumes in the chat here. So we have 4 resumes this week. I've taken a page out of Ampersand's playbook and numbered them this week. 4 bubble teams, you might say. 4 teams that could get in, could not. I'm interested to see what everyone thinks in terms of how they would rank them. So you can, if you have the ability to speak, go ahead and give us your thoughts on the voice chat, and everyone else, you can put them in order in the text chat.
All right, so right off the bat, you see numbers 1 and 2 with at least one top quarter win. Numbers 3 and 4 don't have that. But then you look at the middle half, right? One team is 1 and 4. 2 teams are 2 and 4, and one team is 2 and 3. So right now, if I were to choose one of these teams to make the playoffs, I would have to choose number 27, or sorry, number 1, I guess.
Yeah, number 1 definitely looks the best out of these to me right off the bat. They have some really good losses, one not so great one, but the win over number 12 kind of seals that for me.
I also agree with you that number 1 is probably the best, with number 2 as a close second, just because they've played some really good teams in the last 4 weeks. Not sure who any of these teams are, but if I were to rank them, I would probably go 1 and then 2 and then 4 and then 3 because 4 has played seemingly more top 10 teams than 3 has.
I have some thoughts coming in here. Ampersand agrees with your order there, Matt. 1, 2, 4, 3. Cooper is in agreement with that as well. 1, 2, 4, 3. Looked like Sarah recognized at least one of these teams. We have Door saying 4, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, now that I've had a little bit more time to look at it, I'd probably go 1, 2, 4, 3 also.
So 1 is William and Mary. That's our CAA representative this week. 2 is North Dakota State. 3 is Florida A&M, and 4 is Chattanooga. So we had the general consensus, it looked like, was William and Mary, followed by North Dakota State, followed by Chattanooga, followed by Florida A&M. Interestingly, that is not the order of composite. The order of composite would have been William and Mary, Florida A&M, Chattanooga, North Dakota State. But North Dakota State looking better than their composite would suggest, and Florida A&M maybe looking a little bit worse than their composite would suggest. So that was Blind Resumes. We'll turn our attention to some listener topics brought to you by Naki's Fellas Fighting Federation. Excuse me. Philo wanted us to power rank the conferences.
All right, so I'll start this one off. And at number 1, it's ASUN. There's not really a debate there. Number 2 is Big Sky. And then 3 and 4 are either CAA and America East or America East and CAA. They're interchangeable for me. 5, I put CFC because I've played 2 of the teams in that conference this year, and they were both very good, Western Carolina and Elon. 6th, I put the Dick. They just seem to have more quality teams than everyone else below them. 7 is the Ivy because of Princeton and UPenn. 8 is the Missouri Valley. 9 is the Southland, and 10 is the MAC because I don't really know what's going on in the MAC, to be honest.
Yeah, I will copy and paste mine here. I went ASUN, America East, Big Sky, CAA, Ivy, Southland, Dick, MVC, CFC, and MAC.
My top five is the exact same as Bernie's. I got ASUN, America East, Big Sky, CA, and then Ivy. After that, I changed it up a little bit. I went with the Dick, the Southland, MVC, and CFC.
And Door had the ASUN, the America East. He also at 3 and 4 couldn't separate Big Sky and CAA. 5 was Ivy. 6 and 7 he said Dick and MVC. Southland at 8. CFC was 9th, and MAC at 10. Another question from Pilo this week. Are there any decent to good teams that their conference doesn't hype as underrated or slept on, especially coaches who don't venture outside of the conference channel much?
Yeah, so in conference, I'm going to say Bobo from William Mary. He's very quiet, and compared to the rest of the conference, he's very, very slow, but he is really hard to beat and stop too on offense. He's really good with that. But outside of the CAA, I'll go with Uncle Rico. From what I can tell, he's really good. He has as much attention as he deserves.
I'm going to go with Holy Cross. They haven't been hyped very much. I think they're going to see in this week's coaches poll and probably this week's committee rankings a steady jump from where they were last week. I don't think they were ranked last week in the coaches poll, actually. But they're sitting at 16th in composite right now and have some really good wins on the resume, including over our own Villanova. So Holy Cross would be my number 1 pick. I agree inside the CAA. I think Bobo at William and Mary is probably the underhyped or slept on team.
Yeah, for me, it's got to be Skip at Holy Cross too. I think they're getting a little overlooked because they don't really have a true marquee win. But I mean, they've played a really tough schedule and they haven't played anyone lower than 94th in composite. So they deserve a little bit more love than they're getting.
For me, it's got to be Skip. I mean, everyone's really already said anything. I think he was a guest on the podcast before. We've had him here. But yeah, super underrated. Very good coach.
Jake asked us, what was your least favorite class in high school? And maybe give a little bit of explanation as to why.
All right, I'll start this one off. My least favorite was honors English my freshman year. I just hated it because they kind of forced me into it out of eighth grade, and I didn't want to be in honors English, but they kind of forced me into it. We had like ridiculously specific quizzes and stuff for spelling and definitions, and yeah, it just really wasn't a fun time.
Me, it was Calc BC. I was a decent math student before Calc BC. But we had a horrendous math teacher my senior year who was more interested in teaching us about bartending and soccer. That's when I fell in love with European soccer. So I guess there's trade offs to this, but he was more interested in teaching us about those things than about calculus. They would have given me a 0 on the AP test if they could have. I basically didn't even answer anything on a question. He told the seniors that he promised we wouldn't get anything less than an 80 in the class, and that's really all I needed to hear from a college perspective. So I put in absolutely no effort in that class.
For me, it was this past year, my sophomore year. I took honors pre-calc. I've been a relatively good math student. Freshman year, I had honors algebra 2, which was a breeze, because I took the same class in eighth grade, but then I switched districts. It's a long story, but I fell asleep in freshman year math a lot. But then I came in this year, and I didn't really know that much, so I was ready to learn. A pretty good learning mentality. But the teacher was teacher was a great guy, super nice. He had like two kids; they were really nice too. But he was a horrible teacher. He didn't know what he was teaching. Uh, so I understood very little, and at the end, I just took the pass fail option to save my GPA this semester.
So interestingly enough, unlike Bernie, I loved BC Calc when I took it my senior year. But anyways, my least favorite class was definitely freshman honors geometry. It had probably the worst teacher I've ever had for any class at any level. College, elementary school, middle school, not even close. She's by far the worst. On top of being a really not good teacher, she would constantly talk about the Eagles as well as the French language, including talking to herself in French at times. It was just a horrible experience all around, especially since I had it last class of the day. So I fell asleep a lot as well.
We're back to some questions from Pilo here. He asked us to rank the playbooks.
For me, not rating them off of personal preference, options obviously the best one here. And then throwing in that personal bias, I have spread 2, air raid 3, pro last. Defenses, 4-3 is the best, 5-2 is second, 3-4 is the worst, but the only reason I haven't changed it is because I'm too lazy to change up my stat sheet, and I'm probably going to change in the off season.
Yeah, so not really sure what the 5x5 is going to look like yet, but I have option first, air raid second, pro third, and spread is the worst one. And then on defense, it goes 5-2-4-3, and then 3-4 for me.
I'm kind of similar. I went in order of personal preference. So for me, the option, that's what I use. That's what I like the most. Pro as well. I'm a pretty run heavy guy and was pro before I switched to option. I like the air raid third, and then spread is probably my least favorite offensive playbook. Defensively, I go 5-2, 4-3, 3-4.
All right, for me, I went with option first. I've used it once, but it's kind of hard to argue that at least in its current form, it's a little OP. I went pro next because that seems to get me the best. That seemed to have gotten me the best record out of them. Spread because that's what I used in D2 last year, and then air raid's the only one I haven't used, so I'm gonna go with that last. And then for defenses, I'm going 5-2, 4-3, and then 3-4.
Hilo also asked us what pronunciation of CAA is the best.
So I'm gonna say it's when you pronounce CAA by itself, because it's longer and it's more music to your ears. It's like listening to three Taylor Swift albums instead of one. I don't know if the Camel's still listening, but that was a little reference for him there.
Like it. Mr. D says that caw like a crow is his favorite pronunciation. But I'm with you, Dor. I like CAA. I do like to use the letters as other pronunciations as part of words. And I know that that drives the ASUN absolutely crazy, but CAA is my favorite way to say it out loud. Had a question from Was Up. This one is relevant to pop culture. What's the best song on T Swift's new album?
Okay. So I like Exile, which is the song featuring Bon Iver. Bon Iver is a great singer. I had the opportunity to play one of his songs, 715 Creeks, behind a show choir. And the choir sang beautifully, and our music accompaniment was really, really good. Yeah, it's not technically on the album. I don't know. It's weird, but I know it's new, so I like it. Um, so yeah, I like Bon Iver. Bon Iver's really good, and the way they use the harmonies in that song, Bon Iver, yeah, um, yeah, the way the harmonies are in that song, it's very well written. So yeah, that's my favorite. Sorry about that, like a little rant there about Bon Iver.
I'm gonna go with Last Great American Dynasty. I do like the album as a whole, but that's tops of on the charts for me.
Yeah, I haven't listened to it, and I probably never will. So, yeah, whatever
Wow,
you guys said.
that's pretty harsh.
Yeah, I'm with Matt there. I wouldn't be surprised if I never hear a single song from it.
I wish I had known this before you joined the CAA. I might have looked for other coaches. Last but not least, Cooper asked, "Can you do a segment where you look at the division races and give quick answers on who you think will come out on top?" Okay, so I'm going to go conference by conference here, starting at the top of 12-12. In the America East, I have Albany winning the tri-state, and I have Holy Cross coming out in the New England division. That one could very well be decided against New Hampshire next week. I got Holy Cross there. In the A-Sun, I'm going to take the current division leaders, Alabama A&M and Bethune-Cookman. They're both unbeaten in the conference right now, and I think they get to the CCG. In the Big Sky, give me Cal Poly and give me Montana State. Montana State currently tied for first in the North, but they control their destiny. In the CFC, I have Western Carolina and I have Furman with Uga taking the reins. Give me Furman there. In the CAA, I'm sticking with my preseason predictions. I have Nova and Delaware. I know I have Youngstown State winning this week, so it seems a little consistent, but I'm hedging my bet and saying Villanova. The Delta Intercollegiate, I have Mississippi Valley State and Morehead State, two more teams that are unbeaten in their conference so far. I'll give you two Ivy League teams to make the CCG. I'm going to go Princeton and Penn. In the MAC, I'm going to take the current division leaders, Hampton and Marist. Marist is tied with Bucknell, but I think they'll get in. In the MVC, I'm going to pull an upset here. I think UNI will come out over North Dakota State in the Prairie Division and give me EIU in the Metro. And in the Southland, I'll take the two top teams right now, Incarnate Word and Sam Houston State.
Yeah, I didn't really even notice this was a question on our list until about 5 minutes ago. So I'm just gonna agree with all that, except with Youngstown State instead of Nova.
I'm gonna agree with most of that, except for I'm gonna have Youngstown State in instead of Nova. And for the CFC, I'm gonna have uh, Charleston Southern in instead of Furman. I think Uga might be a little bit rusty, as well as in the MVC. I would also put North Dakota State in.
Yep, same thing as Matt. Give me YSU instead of Nova. Give me Captain CC instead of Uga, and then give me Sarah instead of Chase in the NBC Prairie.
Well, we've reached the end of the script. I think this is a new record time. We got through this one in only 40 minutes. So good luck in week 10 to everyone. Thank you all for joining. And good luck to our hosts. Thank you all for the effort you put in again this week.
Peace out.
Good luck.
Good luck, everyone, even the listeners. We love you guys.